Welcome back. In the previous lesson, we completed the part of our task, which is to create the heading tags for our web page and as well create a small disclaimer text where we found new HTML tags that are available to us, like a small tag that creates small text and B tag or bold tag, which makes part of our text bold. We also learned something about nesting HTML tags inside each other. And now we need to create larger parts of text, like we have, for example, in newspaper. So we need to create 3 paragraphs of text, and we want our web page to resemble this newspaper article, for example, where you have chunks of text divided into sections. And the best way to do that is to create 3 paragraphs with some dummy text. So now we're going to introduce the P tag or the paragraph tag, and whatever we place between the opening and closing tags is going to be generated as a paragraph element, or rather as a chunk of text on your web page. Now, I just placed one sentence here for the testing purposes, but soon you're going to see how it works in practice when you have a large text. If we go back to the front end and refresh our page, we see that there is a new text here available to us. And if we inspect this element, we see it has a P tag. Now we need a larger text to place, and whenever you are developing a website and you need some dummy text to be placed, you just need to type lorem ipsum in your Google and find the first, click on the first result. Most often it will be this page, where you can just copy this paragraph, which is like some Latin text that doesn't mean anything really, but it is something that developers use commonly until they get some real content that can be placed on their web page. Now we're going to replace my sentence with this dummy text. And if you see this, like all the text is placed in one line, that is just Visual Studio Code formatting your code in one line. And you can fix that by going to View and Word Wrap. And this is useful not only for dummy text, but for some larger code that you have. The code editor will place everything on one single page, so you do not need to horizontally scroll for it. I'll just copy this same text 3 times to create 3 paragraphs. And we can already guess how this is going to look. You see there are 3 sections of text, the paragraphs, and they're divided from each other, no matter what screen size we're using. Now we need to create some subheadings that are going to describe each paragraph in order to finish our task, and also add 2 images to this text. First, to create subheadings, we are going to use the h2 tag. We covered subheading tags in the previous lesson, so please check part 2 of this video to see how it all works. The h2 tag, for the content, I'm going to use some dummy text again, called example 1. I'm just going to copy this subheading 3 times and rename it. And right away from the code structure, you can guess how our page is going to look. We're going to have 3 divided parts of the text, nicely structured, with the h1 beginning from the top. This is something that you always want to have on your web page. Some solid structure and some nice flow from the h1 to h2, h3 tags, etc. If we click inspect now, you will see that the structure remains the same for each screen size, which is something we want to achieve. And now for the last part of our task, we want to place two images in our web page. To do this, I have already placed two images in my work folder. One is called Bird1 and it has a landscape orientation, and the other one is Bird2 with portrait orientation. And the new page is the HTML document we are checking right now. In Visual Studio Code, you can see that these images are also loaded and they're ready to be used. So in order to place one image above this subtitle and the other below the second paragraph, I'm going to use image tags. Now, image tag is a self-closing tag, which is something we discussed in part 1 of this tutorial. Self-closing tags can be closed with simply like this. And image tags have two very important HTML attributes, source and alt. Source is where we place the path to our image, and alt is actually the alternative text that is going to be loaded if our image is for some reason not being loaded from the server. Here I'm going to write some descriptive text that explains the image in case it doesn't load. Bluebird sitting on a tree. And for the learning purposes, I'm going to leave source attribute empty. So our image does not load, but our text, alternative text, loads. And in this case, we have a fallback text in case that our image breaks for some reason. If we inspect it, we see that source is unknown. We need to tell the browser where the image is in order for the browser to actually show our image. Since our Bird1 image is located in the same folder as our HTML document, I'm just going to write Bird1 JPEG. In case that we had a folder with images, for example image folder, I would just write image with /bird1. This img would then be the name of the folder, and the browser would know to go into that folder and look for that image. So let's refresh it now, and we can see that image loads, but it's not very optimal because the image is being loaded in full size, and that is because we have not specified the dimensions of this image. So it loads in its native resolution, which is pretty high. It's like 1280 in width. So I'm going to use a width attribute to limit the size of this image and specify the value of 320, which stands for the amount of pixels that this image should be wide, and we have a height of 200. And if we refresh this now, we see that the image is much smaller and it's looking nicely. And for the second image, we can just copy our previous tag and place it where we want to load the second image. We need to change the source to Bird2 because it's named differently. And we should also change the alternative text to Greenbird. And because this is a portrait mode, we need the height to be much larger or our image will look distorted. So let's place something around 600 pixels of height. And if we refresh our page, we see that we have two images, but the second image is quite distorted. It's looking very weird, and we need to increase the width attribute just to expand it a little bit. Let's place something around 400 pixels. And it's looking much better now, which is what we wanted to achieve. And you can see that our page is now finished and it is looking very well for the beginner work. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video to someone who is struggling to understand the basics of HTML. See you again with some more tutorials.